It's time to talk about holy wars. No, not those holy wars. These holy wars. Fortunately, there were only three, but just like the Crusades, they were more politically motivated than actually religiously motivated. I hope I didn't just provoke a flame war there. Anyway, some basic information. Shammur the Vindicator was written by me on January 6th, 2020, as my 25th story. It takes place mostly in 1151 LM, and was written in-world by some guy named Mikmor. And now for the characters. The titular character of this story, Shammur III, also known as Shammur the Vindicator for reasons that will eventually become apparent, is shown here. He's the son of Miran King Kusu II and eventually becomes King of Mira himself. He's married to Rupka, this woman right here. Rupka doesn't play a huge role in this story, but her brother, the Pomagan Emperor Shammur IV, certainly does. Yeah, this story features the first two ethnic Pomagan characters I've shown you thus far, unless I'm forgetting some other video, which is entirely possible. Anyway, one minor character is Shammur's son Shammur IV, who takes over after him. No gods this time, it's all people. I'd also like to note that Shammur IV holds the distinction of being the very first character in my videos to have facial hair. That's because the Mirans can't grow facial hair. It's just a genetic thing. Anyway, moving on. Before we get into the story, a bit of historical context. Please don't click off, I'll keep it short. So, this is a map of West Central Dekabi, the southern continent. Here we have the Mirans, the Hessadians, and the Pomagans. In the year 919 LM, the Hessadians take advantage of a kingless Mira in the middle of civil war, conquering the whole country. It stays like that for a while, before Shammur II of the House of Bainok, or Shammur the Liberator, rises up and wrenches power back into the hands of the Mirans. After that, the Mirans have a beef with the Hessadians, enough that in 1090 LM, King Kusu I launches the first Razrak, which means Holy War, against Assadia. It succeeds. There's a second one launched by Shammur III's father Kusu II sometime later, and it's also successful. Shammur III is only 14 years old when the second Razrak ends in 1126, which his father thinks is the prime time for marriage. The next year, he has Shammur married off to a Pomagan princess by the name of Rupka. They have 3 sons over the next 5 years, Shammur, Pej, and Kusu. Kusu ends up dying of pneumonia, and Shammur's father, also named Kusu, dies shortly afterward, meaning Shammur III is now king. Sorry if these names are somewhat confusing. The Miran royal families are not totally original with their names. Shammur's reign is actually fairly uneventful for quite a while, and most scholars agree that he never intended on provoking a war with Assadia. Fortunately, he didn't need to provoke a war, because the Hessadians did that themselves. Towards the end of 1148 LM, a Hessadian raiding party burns down a bunch of Miran border towns, which infuriates Shammur and leads him to muster an army. In the first month of 1149, on Shammur's 37th birthday, the first battle of the Third Razrak occurs at Karakim, and it's a resounding Miran victory. The Pomagan Empire, desiring more land, began invading Hessadia shortly afterward. Fast forward to 1151 LM, and Hessadia has almost entirely capitulated. Mira and the Pomagan Empire have crushed Hessadian resistance over and over and over, save for a couple losses at Galupik and Gamarn. Up to this point, the Pomagans haven't been too invested in the war. The Hessadians realize this and exploit it, taking the offensive against their opponent. Remember that Pomagan emperor I mentioned a while back, Shammur IV? Yeah, this really grinds his gears, so he issues the Edict of Artagon, which states that every able-bodied man in the empire is supposed to show up to fight this war. The Pomagans don't mess around. The Hessadians have managed to take one major Pomagan city, called Finalem. Shammur directs his army towards this stronghold, and Shammur decides to help out his nominal ally. Finalem is a major economic hub in the empire, and eventually the Pomagans would start to feel a strain when they couldn't pay for the war. Shammur recognizes that the Pomagans are extremely territorial, so he thinks it's necessary to send a messenger to Shammur first, just in case he doesn't like the Mirans trespassing on Pomagan soil. Unfortunately, the messenger is captured along the way, and Shammur is never informed of the incoming Miran army. Shammur's army is stationed on top of a hill, so they can see the relatively flat Pomagan countryside for miles around. They see the approaching Miran army in the distance, and Shammur assumes it's a reinforcement Hessadian force. Shammur would have been flying the Miran flag, but he was under the impression that the messenger had done his job correctly, so he felt that it wasn't necessary. Shammur, of course, isn't aware of any Miran army coming to help, so he dispatches a small Pomagan force to go deal with the incoming army. The Mirrans are extremely confused why this Pomagon force is coming at them looking ready to kill, so they scatter in all directions as they get slaughtered by their own allies. Khmer, watching from the hill, is said to have laughed throughout the whole debacle. The force comes back up, and the leader of the detachment is trembling as he bows so low to his emperor that his sword falls out of its sheath. He says, "Sire, I'm afraid we have made a terrible mistake." Khmer stops laughing as the soldier explains that they may or may not have just killed King Shammur III. Khmer actually starts insulting his brother-in-law, calling him an idiot for trespassing on Pomagon lands and a coward for running away. The Pomagons run their army full force into Finalem, and somehow lose. The Hassadians obliterate the overconfident Pomagon army. How does all this get back to the Mirans? Well, the Pomagons allowed one soldier to escape and notify the Mirans that their king was dead, and that he did. Shammur III's son, Shammur, became Shammur IV and vowed not to tell the people what actually happened to his father, lest he risk breaking the already fragile alliance with the Pomagons. Instead, he tells his nation that his father fought valiantly, side by side with Khmer, but unfortunately he was surrounded and killed by the Hassadians. The people eat this up and join the military in droves, quickly rebuilding the Miran army, and the Third Razrak is eventually won by the Mira-Pomagon alliance. Shammur IV authorized the public beating of Hassadian citizens on the streets and had the Hassadian royal family executed. The land was split between Mira and the Pomagon Empire, and all was well after that, right? Not exactly. Shammur IV reigned for 27 years after the end of the Third Razrak, dying in 1178 LM. His younger brother Pej and the surviving soldier decided it was time to open up about what really happened at Finalem, so they told the Miran people the true account of that day. This revelation enraged the Mirans and fostered extreme anti-Pomagon sentiment. But more level heads prevailed, such as the author of this document, Mi'kmor. He uses the end of the short biography to warn against war with the Pomagons. But the Pomagons are too powerful to go to war with now. If we were to fight them, we would surely lose, and a dark age would descend upon the Nuke. Thus, we must calm our hatred, lest we drag ourselves into a war we do not need, and surely would not win. And thus ends the tragic story of Shammur the Vindicator. At least he's remembered by the Miran people as a noble warrior king who held their interests at heart. As always, leave comments if you have something to say, and I look forward to reading them. Also, remember that we do have a subreddit for this channel now, as well as a Discord, so check those out if you'd like. That's about it, so I'll see you all on the next one.